Well, it looks like we're closing out the week with more controversial Sony and Naughty Dog news. That just seems to be how the news cycle has gone this week for Sony. And in this case, it appears that a game we've kind of been expecting is confirmed once again, and it is causing quite a bit of controversy online. We'll discuss that here today. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here to the Spawnwave Plus channel. Let's head over here to Insider Gaming, as they have a screenshot here from the lead outsource artist on LinkedIn going over some of their responsibilities with their job, which includes overseeing the production of all outsourced environment art assets, weapons, and interactive props for two iconic titles, Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us 2 Remastered. Now, we heard that Last of Us 2 Remastered was something Sony was working on when the composer had discussed like a new feature that was being added into the game when it came to like playing songs and stuff in it, but still is like the composer kind of discussing the idea of re-recording stuff and putting music in certain spots. But now you have the lead outsourced artist discussing production for Last of Us Part 1, which was, of course, a recent remake that they did, and The Last of Us 2 Remastered, which, of course, has brought up the conversation of, once again, how necessary is this? Because we already had this conversation with Last of Us 1, getting that Part 1 remake for the PlayStation 5, despite being available on the PS4. There was a graphical jump. Like, you could see it. They showed it off, and okay, yeah, it does look better. I do question how much better Last of Us Part 2 is going to look with this Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. It already is at 1440p, 60 frames per second on the PlayStation 5, as Sony has done different updates for it. And what I'm picturing here with this Remastered is essentially director's cut. We've seen this, of course, with some of their other games where Sony will charge $10 for that upgrade path, and it'll add some additional features, whether it's including more of the DualSense interactivity with the game, maybe audio updates. One thing that was kind of interesting was with Ghost of Tsushima, they were able to render the cutscenes and stuff in real time, so they were able to match up some of the lip syncing a bit better, depending on like the language and stuff you had chosen. But with Last of Us Part 2, I know the story, all of that, a lot of controversy behind it, right? Did you agree with what was going on or not? Different characters being portrayed, sure. But one thing I feel like most people can agree on, the presentation, the gameplay, the visuals, animation, all this stuff is like top tier. It is really, really good. And that was on the PlayStation 4. I played it on the PS4 Pro, and there were moments now where I'd look back on it. Like, I bet you I pop it in right now, and I'll just see it as a PS5 game. Like, of course, playing on the PS5, 60 frames per second, 1440p will lend to that a bit more. But I feel like if I put it in my PS4 Pro, it would still look better than a lot of PS5 games now. So the only thing I can really think of is that, okay, we're going to push this up to native 4K. It'll be 60 frames. And then we'll just include more stuff with say, the DualSense controller, audio upgrades. It's hard to try to figure out what they would really do to this thing to make it feel like it's worth jumping up to. Well, how much do we think this would be? Because I'm thinking it's a $50 game, but it's Sony, so maybe I should set my expectation at $70 and then work down from there and just be surprised if it's something like a $50 game. Now, the $10 upgrade path is what I feel like most people would take, because you may already just, I assume, own the game if you're a Last of Us fan anyway. But if they release it as a PS5 game, they can obviously market it as such on store shelves with a PS5 logo at the top, sure. But the other thing to consider here is this would be Sony's path forward to putting the game on PC. They already put Last of Us Part 1 there. Mixed results. Wasn't a great PC port necessarily at first. I feel like they've done updates for it and it has gotten better. But Last of Us Part 2 is a game that I'm sure they would like to get on PC. It's been long enough. The game came out in 2020, so it'd be a 4-year span between that when it first released and then making the jump from console to PC. And they would be able to line it up with the show, right? Like, we're getting another season for it, all that, and they took advantage of it with Last of Us Part 1 that did top the PlayStation Store, by the way, when it came out. So I feel like for what they had to do there to make it work and get that remake done, they probably made pretty good money on it. And I have to imagine that The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered would probably do pretty well, considering I would look at this more as a remaster as opposed to a remake for Part 1. Minimal changes and updates and upgrades, and probably quite a bit of upside when it comes to the revenue they generate. I do want to say one thing that I feel like would make this feel more of a valuable release, and one that I would be much more interested in, is if they found a way to include some sort of multiplayer component to it. And this is mostly because the multiplayer that they had originally designed for Last of Us Part 2 apparently got so big that they spun it off into this factions multiplayer thing that I was kind of picturing like The Division, where it would be more like a bigger world that you would run around with friends and what have you, have full progression system, that sort of thing. And yes, they would work it in, I'm sure, to their live service section with microtransactions, some sort of battle pass, what have you there. But because that spun off to that, and then apparently it became too big for Naughty Dog to figure out, Bungie technically sent it back, now it's on ice and apparently dead, maybe have a pared back multiplayer, closer to what you did with Last of Us when it first came out, and then on the PS4, of course, and work towards adding value that way. My only thing is, they've already gone so far in the direction of it being a live service release, standalone release. I don't know if there's a way for them to pare it back and make that multiplayer game and attach it to this remaster. So I think this is just going to be The Last of Us Part 2, the game we've already played on the PS4, and maybe some of us backwards compatible on the PS5, just released again with some additional features here and there, and maybe extra content. I guess that's another path, is they could do something with an epilogue, or who knows, a side story that they can include with it and just package in. But this is a weird one, I will admit, although we're also waiting for them to announce Horizon Zero Dawn getting a remake or remaster. So Sony is, they certainly seem to like these remasters and remakes of games that are now very old. So I don't know. We'll see with this one. I think it would still come out and do well enough as an upgrade for Sony in terms of like the $10 jump, and probably on store shelves, or at least get picked up by people who maybe just got a PS5 and just got into the Last of Us series and they want to see how things turn out in the games. Here's hoping they get that big early twist in the series before they pick up the game, or they might be scarred with their golf game. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.